Ladies and gentlemen, good evening and welcome to Canal Algérie's nightly news. On to the headlines. The President of the Republic, Abdelmajid Tebboune, is in Addis Ababa to chair the Algerian delegation taking part in the 38th Ordinary Session of the African Summit of Heads of State and Government. Algeria consolidates its leading position in Africa as a key partner in terms of economic development, security and diplomacy, calling for greater cooperation within the AU. Algeria is likely to obtain a seat within the AU Peace and Security Council for North Africa, with 30 votes out of 33 required for this position, widely ahead of Morocco. Algeria commemorates the 65th anniversary of the nuclear tests in it again, and recognizing this crime is now a must. Welcome back. We begin with tonight's top story as the President of the Republic, Abdelmajid Tebboune, arrived today in Addis Ababa, the Federal Democratic Republic of Ethiopia, to preside over the Algerian delegation taking part in the proceedings of the 38th Ordinary Session of the Summit of Heads of State and Government of the African Union. After the welcoming ceremony and hailing the emblem, the President of the Republic reviewed a military formation. Later on, the President of the Republic shook hands with the Algerian delegation, led by the Minister of Foreign Affairs, the National Community Abroad and African Affairs, Ahmed Attaf, and the Secretary of State in charge of African Affairs. In addition to the Algerian diplomatic delegation accredited in the Federal Democratic Republic of Ethiopia. The reception ceremony included a welcoming performance to the President in accordance with Ethiopian hospitality traditions. This visit reflects bilateral relations and historical ties that lay the foundation for a prosperous and promising future for a unified Africa in the framework of a comprehensive vision to achieve the desired integration. The President of the Republic, Abdelmajid Tebboune, had left Algiers to Ethiopia to lead the delegation taking part in the proceedings of the 38th Ordinary Session of Heads of State and Government of the African Union. After listening to the national anthem at Houari Boumediene International Airport's VIP lounge, the President of the Republic reviewed the formation of the Republican Guard, who paid him the honors. The President of the Republic was seen off at the airport by the Principal Private Secretary to the Presidency of the Republic, Boualem Boualem, the Minister Delegate to the Minister of National Defense, Chief of Staff of the PNA Army General Said Chingriha, and the Premier Nadir Al-Arbawi. Algeria plays a leading role in Africa's sovereignty, stability, and economic integration through major infrastructure projects that consolidate security and stability and reinforce its leadership within the African Union and even on the global stage. More details with Melissa Lila Balaman.
In a rapidly evolving Africa, Algeria stands out as a key player, driving a vision of independence and sovereignty for the continent. Africa's voice isn't a simple commitment for Algeria, but a deep conviction in the framework of its mandate at the UN Security Council, shaped by its history of struggle and reinforced by the current common challenges. Proud of its African identity, Algeria steadfastly continues its defense of the continent's fair causes, from advocating a meaningful reform of the Security Council to the commitment in favor of a unified African stance against historical injustices, protecting the sovereignty of the African states and safeguarding economic interests. Algeria pursues action through a determined and coherent approach. Algeria plays a remarkable role within the institutions of the African Union. It takes on a key position in strengthening the stability of African institutions and works towards building a genuine union that benefits all its members. Through its constant commitment, Algeria also affirms its determination to reinforce African unity so that the continent can assert itself on the international stage and secure a strong and unified place in the global system. With a strategic vision based on Africa's economic potential, Algeria makes regional integration a priority by supporting major development projects, including the Trans-Saharan Highway, the Nigeria-Algeria gas pipeline, and the implementation of a fiber optic link across the Sahara. At the same time, it focuses on strengthening trade exchanges with Africa by opening new border crossings, creating free trade zones, and expanding the continental banking network. Additionally, Algeria is developing air and maritime links to enhance its economic integration with African countries. Algeria's African policy is based on three fundamental pillars: history, power, and prosperity. Algeria's role in the continent is reflected in the prudent policies it pursues in the Sahel and Maghreb region, as well as in its expertise in counter-terrorism and its strong ties to security issues in these areas. Furthermore, Algeria's strategic geographic position and the prestige it has inherited from its struggles against colonialism reinforce its active role in Africa. Security and development in Africa are at the heart of Algeria's vision. This approach aims to establish a balance that enables the continent to overcome security challenges and provide a concrete response to the terrorist threat.
حقيقي لظاهرة الإرهاب.
Terrorism in Africa is one of the key issues to which Algeria is fully committed, striving to provide rapid and lasting solutions. As a leader and advocate within the African Union in the fight against this scourge, President Abdelmajid Tebboune regularly calls for a comprehensive approach that addresses the root causes of the phenomenon through a coherent coordination between security and development.
On the sidelines of the proceedings of the AU's Executive Council, the Foreign Minister Ahmed Attaf held in Addis Ababa talks with a number of his African counterparts, during which prospects of promoting bilateral relations were discussed and advanced in intercoordination at the Arab and African levels. In this respect, Attaf met with the Foreign Minister of the Federal Democratic Republic of Ethiopia, Jayden Timotheos, and the Minister of International Relations and Cooperation of South Africa, Ronald Lamola, and the Minister of Foreign Affairs and Southern Cooperation of the United Republic of Tanzania, Mahmoud Tahabad Kombo, the Minister of Foreign Affairs and International Cooperation of the Republic of Zambia, Molambo Hayambi, the Minister of Foreign Affairs and International Cooperation of the Union of Comoros, Mobai Mohammed, and the Gambian Minister of Foreign Affairs and International Cooperation, Mamadou Tangara. Media campaigns, lies, and attempts at corruption. Yet Algeria still came out on top. The country is heading towards a membership at the Peace and Security Council of the African Union for North Africa in the upcoming elections after obtaining 30 votes out of 33 required for this position. More details in this report. Yet another remarkable distinction for the internationally renowned Algerian diplomacy, with 30 voices out of 33 obtained for a seat at the Peace and Security Council of the African Union for the North African region. Not surprising for a country hailed for its constant diplomatic achievements, despite the irrelevant voices trying to tarnish its image. Another setback for the Makhzen, whose attempts to stop Algeria from reaching the highest positions at the heart of African institutions always end up in failure. The Moroccan regime, that always ends up tangled in corruption affairs in Europe, is trying to apply the same malpractices even at the African Union. This did not go unnoticed by many African countries that want to fully eradicate colonial traditions and endorse the credibility of the Algerian diplomacy and its contribution for the preservation of peace and security in Africa. Algeria beat Morocco in all rounds, with a gap nearing the double, thus excluding it of the race after 6 rounds, during which Morocco demonstrated its incapacity to rival Algeria, as evident in the gap between 30 and 17 voices only for Morocco at the 6th tour, reflecting the influence of Algeria at the continental level. The success of Algerian diplomacy is also a recognition of Algeria's contribution to regional stability, notably in a context marked by big turbulences. In other news, the Speaker of the House of Commons of the British Parliament, Lindsay Hoyle, had stressed the importance of Algeria for the United Kingdom as a political and economic partner and its role for peace and stability in North Africa and the Sahel region. This came during a meeting last Tuesday with the Algerian ambassador in London. Hoyle praised the quality of bilateral cooperation in the various areas of interest, considering it necessary for his country to take advantage of the abundant natural resources that Algeria contains by expanding and deepening the partnership to other sectors, notably energy and tourism. Algeria commemorated today the 65th anniversary of the first French nuclear explosions in the Argent region. On this occasion, the National People's Assembly organized today at the International Conferences Center in the capital a study day entitled French Nuclear Explosions in Algeria, a Crime Against Humanity and the Environment. During the proceedings of the study day, which was supervised by the President of the National People's Assembly in the presence of several ministers, officials from various governments, and governmental and official bodies, parliamentarians, and representatives of civil society. The participants recommended the enactment of a law criminalizing colonialism and obliging France to acknowledge its responsibility for its crimes committed against the Algerian people. On this occasion, Brahim Boughali announced the opening of the file criminalizing colonialism and accompanying countries that are victims of nuclear crime. 65 years after its nuclear tests in Algeria, France still refuses to acknowledge their devastating impacts as radiation continues to harm generations. Algerian officials demand justice, decontamination, and the recognition of these colonial-era crimes against humanity. More with Melissa Lila Balaman.
65 years ago, colonial France carried out nuclear explosions in southern Algeria, whose consequences continue to affect the environment and several generations of Algerians. Crimes against humanity that colonial France still refuses to recognize to this day. France must deliver justice to the victims of the nuclear explosions and their families in proportion to the tragedy they have endured and guarantee the Algerians' legitimate right to justice. It must take responsibility for the decontamination of radiation-exposed sites and nuclear waste and hand over to Algeria the complete archives of the explosion sites so that our experts can assess the damage and take appropriate measures. A panel of MPS experts, doctors and jurists highlighted the importance of informing international public opinion about the genocidal acts perpetrated by colonization. The health and scientific dimension is among the most important areas that should be addressed due to the risks and the dangers of radiation exposure from nuclear explosions in the long term. We call on to France to clean up and rehabilitate these sites, which is a duty it fulfilled to Polynesia, where it handled, settled and cleaned up everything and even buried the waste in wells, gave medical records to veterans and even built a hospital for cancer patients. Yet Algeria, which is a victim like Polynesia, is still denied recognition, an apology and compensation for the victims. France has gone even further. It classified nuclear-related archives as inaccessible in 2008, making them completely unavailable.
Les victimes et elle est passée très très loin. Elle est arrivée en 2008 à fermer les archives qui concernent le dossier nucléaire. Ils sont devenus incommunicables.
We would like to propose a legislative text criminalizing colonialism, especially in response to the current rhetoric in the West, where people are propagating the idea that colonization was beneficial for Algeria. We want to make it clear that the complete opposite is true. Crimes against humanity and nature are indelible, and we want them to be recognized and eventually repaired.
Et nous, on voudrait justement expliquer que c'est tout à fait le contraire. Les crimes contre l'être humain, contre la nature, sont indélébiles et on voudrait que cela soit reconnu et dans un deuxième temps réparé.
The harmful effects of these nuclear explosions are devastating. As parliamentarians, we advocate for the drafting of a law criminalizing these crimes against humanity. Crimes against humanity that expose the brutal hypocrisy of colonial France, a nation that claims to champion human rights while refusing to confront its own atrocities.
And the official commemoration of these painful events took place in Adrar province, presided over by the Minister of War, Veterans and Rights Holders, Laider Bega, during which tribute was paid to the victims. It was also an occasion to recall the consequences and impact this crime has left on the local population up to this date. Coming up in our news edition. The drugs trade revenues, another scandal unveiling the corrupted Makhzen regime getting weaker with such practices. In international news, the French Interior Minister was embarrassed when he was corrected during a radio broadcast by a judge who recalled him of his initial vote for the obligation to leave the French territory now. He is severely criticizing a clear contradiction that reveals the real causes to the current campaign against immigrants. More insights with Sani Mera.
It was a critical moment for the French Minister of Interior during a broadcast on a French radio station when Bruno Retailleau was sharply corrected live by a magistrate from the Administrative Court of Melun. The magistrate reminded him that the decision to cancel the obligation to leave French territory for the Algerian influencer was entirely justified. He went further, pointing out that he himself was behind the decision, which stemmed directly from a law passed by Retailleau's own political group in January 2024. The obligation to leave the French territory relating to an Algerian influence was cancelled by the tribunal. This move is the implementation of the law that was voted in January 2024 as part of the last immigration law pending to the upcoming one. The law was voted by the commission chaired by Retailleau, and the judge was just implementing the law. The magistrate also sounded the alarm over the growing threats targeting the Administrative Court of Melun following its ruling of the case. He condemned the surge of hatred on social media, where explicit calls for violence on the rise. An alarming situation, especially as the court was simply applying the law.
De 3-4 jours au tribunal administratif de Melun, c'est un déchaînement de haine sur les réseaux sociaux.
After the court decision, hatred speech swamped the social media, but once again the decision is just the mere implementation of the law. This clarification displayed a stark contradiction, casting doubt on the French Minister of the Interior's political coherence and credibility.
To Morocco now, once again shaken by drugs trade when a Moroccan MP was arrested in Ceuta. A further proof of the real close link between this illicit practice and the regime in place, making profit of the huge revenues of this trade. Salim Merah once again.
No day goes by without a new scandal jolting the Mahsen regime. Drug trafficking and corruption cases are multiplying. Now they are no longer limited to traditional smuggling circuits, but extend to political and security officials and institutions. The latest case in point is the arrest of a Moroccan member of parliament in Ceuta as part of an operation led by the Spanish Guardia Civil against drug trafficking. These arrests are part of the monitoring of trafficking networks that exploit Ceuta's strategic position as a key crossing point for the distribution of drugs from Morocco.
MDIC Mohamed Ali Douas.
Moroccan MP Mohamed Ali Douas was arrested Thursday in a drug trafficking case. The Guardia Civil carried out an operation in San Salvador that led to the arrests of 5 individuals involved in the international drug trade, a traffic of which Morocco is the main source. This case denotes the worrying link between politics, crime and drug networks, as well as its impact on security and stability, not only on the continent but also globally. Corrupt lobbies now extend beyond the borders of the kingdom, feeding international criminal networks with profits stemming from drugs trade closely linked to the Mahsen regime.
Sports now. Mouloudia of Algiers managed to top the general stand-in of the National Football Championship after defeating here in Algiers the visiting side of GS Kabylie with 3-2. The second game, bringing together ES Mostaganem and CS Constantine, ended in a goalless draw.
منطقة العمليات بالراسبة كرة بين لاعبي صعبة خطيرة من زمن المباراة 3 يوصل كرة من هناك محاولة لمصنع شبيبة القبائل صعبة وخطيرة يا بركة تعود في الدقيقة 82 بعد تسجيل مولودية للهدف الثالث. الشبيبة ترد وتنتفض وتسجل.
That's all we have for tonight. Good night and see you next week.